Hi, Greg. We're at the Royal Commission today.
Yes.
So why did you make the, and I know it's a big effort, to come up here today to give your testimony to the Royal Commission?
I've been involved with the Royal Commission now for 2 years. Originally I got brought on as a survivor and an advisor to the commissioners. But my initial involvement has been a young child brought up in boys' homes.
Which boys' homes were you at?
As a young boy, I got sent to Lookout Point, which is in Dunedin.
Right.
And I spent on and off over a period of 5 years there. Very traumatic for a young boy of 7. Actually, I was a bit younger than that, probably 6 actually. And the way I was treated, which I didn't actually think was a bad thing until I've got much older and realised that what I went through is actually abuse. My abuse, which I felt was very normalised in my mind, and I believe now that it was traumatic, and it put an image in my life for the rest of my life, and it dictated my life from that point on. As a young teenage boy, always used to see these guys walking down the road in groups, big groups, wearing things on their backs, and everyone fed them. And I thought, wow, look at these fellas, they're cool. And never really knew much about who they were, why they got round the way that they did. But I was very intrigued, and I was very, very interested about why these guys were doing what they were doing. From then, I, as a young boy, started playing rugby league. And I was a very skinny, small boy. So rugby league boys that were much bigger than me always seen me as a bit of a target. But anyway, in my journey with rugby league, there was a team called the South Coast Dolphins, which was a mongrel mob team of rugby league players. And I was just blown away about these guys that were the big, ugly, hurt, big, burly boys, and everyone fed them. But they got on the paddock and they played rugby league. There was not the abuse, the threatening, the ugliness. They were there to play a game of rugby league, and that blew me away. So then I started my own wee journey about finding out who they were. And I used to start kicking around, being close around them, go to their pad. Pad being, that's where they all associate. It's their home base. So I started to hang out there. And 13 years old, I was a boy that I wasn't at home. I didn't have a home life.
Well, you were in a children's home.
Yeah.
So the bond had been broken with your parents?
Absolutely. Both parents were alcoholics. Father very abusive, very violent. But my mother was also an alcoholic. Not that we see much violence from her, but not much interest in the children. It was all about drinking. And
do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother and 2 older sisters.
You got a relationship with them?
No. Our relationship was very broken at a very young age, and we've all just sort of gone our own way.
So the bond was broken because you ended up in a home?
Well,
did they end up in the homes with you?
The initial breakup of us was both parents, we got dragged into a wee office, very similar to where we are sitting here. and there was a person sitting in a chair where you are, and there was a desk and chairs like where I'm sitting. And we got taken into this wee office one by one as children. I was 5, my brother was 4, and my 2 sisters, one was 6 and the other one was 8. And one by one we got taken in there and asked who we wanted to live with. And that was very bizarre. We didn't know why it was. We weren't told who these people were. We weren't given any choices apart from who we wanted to live with. But at the same time, how are we supposed to know who we wanted to live with as children? So my young brother had no choice. He went with my mother. And my older sister, who was the 8-year-old, went with Mum. And myself and my next sister went with my father. To this day, I am really unsure why that choice I made. He was a violent man, he was a drunk, he never spent time with us, he wasn't interested in us. So that's where we sort of all fell apart. And I found that getting to know Mangawhai members, I could see that they had a love for each other.
And a family.
And a brotherhood. And it was something that was really, really close.
Yeah.
And that I was just blown away by.
Because you'd never really experienced it.
Never to have a big, burly, tattooed, Māori man come up and say, "Bro, you're going to be all right, you stick with me." And that was like, whoa.
So do you think this picture that people paint of gangs in New Zealand is a little bit out the gate?
Absolutely. I think the books and the interviews and all the stuff that's portrayed is not, I wouldn't say it's 100% correct. I think gangs are always portrayed as bad people. You know, the criminals, the druggies, the alcoholics, the abusers, the this, the that.
But do you think more of it is because they're looking for a brotherhood and a family?
I think the initial contact with anyone that's in a gang is for that purpose. That there's something in their psyche that's been lost, and all they're looking to do is get that back. Mm-hmm. And I think Māori, Pākehā, Asian, it doesn't matter who you are.
So this depiction that they're all Māori is just racially biased, isn't it?
It is biased, very, very biased. In fact, being a European, Pākehā, blonde hair, blue eyes, as a gang member, yes, I've had tribulations through being a gang member and being treated differently by gang members because I am white. Not a lot of them understand why are you with the Mangawhai. Whereas I've been able to share my story, which is not much different to their own. And that's where I believe I've had some trust. I've built up a lot of trust with a lot of gang members throughout New Zealand.
You know, they're depicted as all being violent, carrying firearms, and 100% drug dealers.
Yeah, that's interesting because I see the New Zealand police is exactly the same. They wear uniforms, they carry guns, they deal with drugs. So I don't see that they're much different to our local other gang members.
We call Families for Justice, and now I guess they call us a gang too.
That's right. My way of thinking is it's a label. It's a label that people can use to isolate people. And my way of thinking is, well, why don't we just put everyone under a label and call them human? We're all human. Oh shit, that's something new. So that takes away a stigma, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think that politicians actually really use gangs as a bit of a political ploy to engage with their electorate in an area of fear? Definitely.
They try and put the fear into public. They put fear up people to, oh, look out for the gangs. They're dealing firearms, they're dealing drugs, they're into crime, they're into murder. Well, I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. I've had a wee bit of criminal activity, but very, very minimal. Never been to prison. I've had some pretty big successes in my life, and I still wonder, well, how can they say I'm a bad person? And it intrigues me. You know, I get asked on a daily thing, oh, what's that tattoo? Who are you with? When I say the Manga Mob, I'm proud to be a Manga Mob member. I'm proud to put on my patch and walk around our streets. I don't do drugs. I don't deal in firearms. I don't believe I'm a criminal. I'm just a human that's living in this terrible world.
So, of course, Mr. Simeon Brown would like to depict that the mongrel mob are the most dangerous people in prisons.
Wow. Who else is in prison?
Lots of other people.
Really? No, well, I wonder why they're in prison. Maybe they're just as bad as the mongrel mob or other gang members that are serving time in institutions. Mm. And I think so. Does that mean that every gang member is in jail, serving time for a crime? No.
Does that mean every Boy Scout's a paedophile?
Definitely. Is every priest a paedophile?
Exactly. And we know that the churches actually conducted some very serious abuses throughout history.
Indeed. And that goes back generations. And so I always ask the question, well, you know, who is the biggest gang in New Zealand? And I quite often take away the label of gangs. I say, well, humans are the biggest gang in New Zealand. Whether if they're Māori, Asian, Indian, Pākehā.
Now, this scourge that we've got going through New Zealand of methamphetamine is a really serious problem. And what I've seen of some of the gangs is actually they're trying to stop their peers and their family members getting involved in P.
Yes.
What's your view on that?
My view, and it's only solely my view, I can't stand the drug. It's a dangerous drug, it's an evil drug, and it is a home wrecker, it's a life wrecker. Yeah. But I do want to make very, very clear to any New Zealander, any person overseas, this drug has been around since World War II. Yeah.
They were given to the military.
They were given to the military. Why? To keep them awake and keep them fighting. Yeah. So this drug's been around a long, long time.
So it was produced by the governments.
Yes, and it was always there. It's always been there. Yeah. It's only been highlighted now because it's a political game. We can make dollars off this. We can achieve things off this. We can prosecute people off this. But then I say, who all are...
But it has created a lot of domestic violence.
Oh, it has. It has. But everyone's using domestic violence.
Yeah, that's true. It's not necessarily just the gangs.
Do we go back and say, well...
Remuera is doing it?
The father at home that's beating his child, is he on methamphetamine? No. Is the mother on methamphetamine? No. So I've got to say, this is just a highlighted issue.
So when we look at the kind of unconscionable bias against someone like yourself, who's a mongrel mob member, how do you feel now that you've gone through this Royal Commission, and yours was abuse, right? And don't you find it rather interesting that none of the culprits have been held to account?
Absolutely.
Why isn't our jail, we've got 250,000 people abused in state care, why isn't there 250,000 social workers or people in authority put in jail for the sexual abuse they've given against children, vulnerable children?
Indeed, and that's something that I believe, even through this inquiry, we're starting to see that it's just not parents, It's just not family members or.
This is our taxpayers' money.
This is people that are paid by our government
and they've abused our most vulnerable, and they've never been held to account.
That's right. That's right, and I believe this still comes back to the government. The government have got such a, I'd say, protection. Like I think our police are protected.
Oh, immunity from prosecution.
Absolutely.
It's outrageous, isn't it?
Our government departments, it's very, very difficult to even be involved in those.
Jesus, if you go to the Privacy Commissioner now, you can't even knock on the door and say, I want to see you.
That's right.
They say that you've got to make an appointment.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
These people are supposed to service us. These people are out the gate.
Yes. And the thing is, I want to say quite clearly that I have known police officers, judges, doctors, surgeons using methamphetamine. Oh my goodness. My goodness.
It's come out in some court cases. So do you know that there's a petition going around that all judges, lawyers and professionals who are actually paid for by the Crown should be drug tested?
Oh, that's great. That is.
Don't you think that'd be fair and reasonable?
I think that's perfect. I think that to be held accountable for who they are, what their role is, why not drug test them? Why not? They drug test every other person in the community.
Would that be a concern, do you think, for the Prime Minister and her fiancé?
Oh, absolutely. Why not? They're Kiwis.
Yeah.
They come under the same law as what we do.
Equal,
or do they?
We're all equal before the law. Allegedly. No, we're not.
That's right.
And isn't this really what New Zealanders are really complaining about? The fact that, don't you feel that we're in a very inequitable system when we're up against the state?
Yeah, well, I believe that it's them and us. I think that's how New Zealand runs. Them as in the normal people out here that are just general Joe Blogs. And then there's those ones out there that look at me, I am Judge so-and-so. I'm the head professor of university. I'm the top surgeon in New Zealand. So I have immunity from this lovely government system that we have. And I believe that it's about bloody time that these people get brought before the courts just like anybody else.
Time to clean out the trough, isn't it?
Time to clean out the trough, or bring them to the trough.
Yeah, and let's hold them to account. I mean, what does Crown Law think they're doing when they're writing laws that gives people immunity for prosecution when they're paid for by our taxpayers' money?
Yes. Well, one thing I want to say there is, how many people do we have that push the pen at a desk with all these laws and policies, procedures?
It's a huge industry, mate.
Oh, I should be in that industry because I would have probably made millions by now.
Some of them are.
Some of them are. They are dead right. Dead right. But I want to say, well, what about the real people? What about the real people? Through this Royal Commission's inquiry, we're starting to see real people start coming before judges, lawyers, and they're starting to hear the real stories. So
you think that at last the grassroots people are starting to have a voice?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's because of social media has also helped a lot?
I believe social media is quite dangerous myself, personally, because I believe people now, even though that it's something that's out there and people know that they can use, but I believe that what's happening with social media is it's an open slather to anything around the world.
Facebook's a pretty toxic place at times.
It's a toxic, well, anything that's on social media.
But that's because people couldn't get a voice.
That's right. That's
you know, mainstream media didn't want to run some of the stories.
Yes.
And that was because it was controlled by the lawyers.
Ooh.
Because the lawyers were scared of prosecution.
Yeah.
And don't you feel as though this threat on Melanie Reid giving a voice on the issues of Auranga Tamariki, New Zealand's most lawless and corrupt ministry, is terrible, that she's being closed down to tell the truth?
Yes, yes. Well,
you know, are you aware that telling the truth is actually not a prerequisite of the justice system in New Zealand?
Well, I think if we can lie and get away with it, why not?
Oh, perjury is against the law. We'd hate to see criminality, but that's exactly what Oranga Tamariki do.
That's right.
Those social workers are out the gate.
That's right. And when are they going to start to be held accountable? Is it going to be through this inquiry?
Or do you think people are going to start taking it into their own hands?
Well, I believe people have tried taking it into their own hands, but they are shut down by our government. When we do bring things to our people that should be out there protecting our rights, are abusing our rights.
Well, that's because the judiciary is supposed to be independent of the state. And the judiciary is supposed to be the interposer between the overwhelming power of the state and the fragile rights of a citizen.
That's right.
But the issue we've got in New Zealand is that the judiciary is supporting the ministries. They're not supporting fair and impartial.
No, because they're not there wanting to hear from local Joe blogs like myself.
Grassroots people.
That it's a gang member, that it's a dangerous person, that's a drug addict, an alcoholic.
Well, you're right. The only one of those you are is a gang member.
Well, that's right. I would like to talk about a wee bit about the gang flagging system that they use now. Recently, I was just
40% of New Zealanders are flagged. Do you know that?
Yes, and I wonder why.
We're a police state.
Yeah. I just want to touch on one wee thing. Recently, I was out I got asked to cut up a wild pig. And in my duties of doing this, I accidentally cut my leg. And it was quite a decent cut, and I just, okay, we better get off to hospital. Went off to hospital, they had a look at it, oh, that looks like a stab wound. I said, yes, I was cutting up a wild pig, and slipped and stuck myself in the leg. Within 10 minutes of being in the A&E, police arrived, and they wanted to know who stabbed me. And as I said to them, pardon? No one stabbed me. I stabbed myself. I was cutting up a wild pig.
But it's an all-of-government approach, you see. The DHBs are in on it. Oranga Tamariki's in on it. The New Zealand Police, the information sharing systems are out the gate.
Yes, and this is where this whole flagging system for gang members.
Yeah, and supposedly they're all breaching our privacy.
Indeed. Indeed. So where did we sign the forms to say you can use our information? We didn't. So there's our rights gone down the tubes already. What happened to the Bill of Rights? What happened to the human, the looking after us because we live in this beautiful nation?
We've got serious problems in this country.
We've got huge problems.
And they stem from the law, actually.
Yes, indeed. Lawyers, judges. Who are they? Are they criminals themselves?
Some of them.
I'd say probably 90% of them.
Hey, I'd really like to thank you for your time today.
Oh,
it's been very interesting, and I hope you don't mind if we post this.
No, that's
and
fine.
we'll send around some of your boys.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay, cheers.
Lovely.
Bye.